Welcome to the Franchise Frontier, the podcast where we explore the evolving franchise landscape, dive into latest industry trends, and share actionable tools and tactics to help you build and grow your business.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Franchise Frontier podcast, where we explore business ownership and the realities behind entrepreneurship. Lessons from people that are actually building the business every day. Today, I'm joined by Carl Steinmann. Carl has been navigating the world of business ownership firsthand and owns a Varsity Zone HVAC of Mooresville. Today, we're going to unpack the journey, the wins, the challenges, and some misconceptions. So, Carl, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be here.
Well, oftentimes when we start this, it's very basic, right? Just some introductory questions to kind of get us to know yourself. So, what inspired you to become a business owner?
I do come from a family of entrepreneurs. So really with my father, who's owned multiple businesses, mainly delis, but also laundromats, a rent-a-car business, and a few other entrepreneurial businesses that he operated. So I kind of grew up around it. And I didn't listen to that, I guess I didn't want to be just like my dad originally. So I went into the corporate world and did that for about 20 years and decided it was time. So here I am today. It's been a whirlwind.
You started to think about getting into business ownership. Was it specific into maybe like home services, or what were some of the things that helped you get to a specific industry?
Yeah. Well, definitely an interest in home services. I have a bit of a background in a side hustle in real estate. So I always loved buying the worst property on a block and putting some sweat equity into it. I'm a pretty handy guy. And I would always hire out trades like electricians, plumbers, and HVAC, and just had a lot of respect for those tradespeople and the craftsmen that I was able to be around during those times. I was doing like framing and sheetrock and a lot of that grunt work stuff that I was doing, tiling, and I just thought they were like really, really smart, good people, and really knew their craft. So when I was out looking to, and I was searching to buy an existing business, really didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but certainly around home services for sure. And that's just based on kind of the experience I've had on flipping homes.
So, when you think back to, you mentioned your dad was an entrepreneur, you have a family of entrepreneurs. Even though you went the corporate way to start, was there a moment when you knew, okay, I want more control of my future, I'm going to cross over?
Yeah, and I didn't, I started right out of college in the corporate world, and I was a salesperson in a printing company. And when the best decision I ever made was to leave that security to go for a 100% commission only to become a print broker. And I met a couple of guys that really impressed me and took a complete leap of faith with just no security blanket at all, and ended up creating a great career and learned, I guess, the art of sales and relationship development. And that company was acquired. And then I ended up, I was doing well, so I didn't want to give up the good income. So I kind of rode it for a long time, and then ended up, the company got bought again, and I was more out of a sales role and into more of an operations role. So I did learn a lot about P&L management. I was managing like 120 million worth of print sales in North America for 3 different divisions. So I did learn a lot, but it was, no longer unlimited commission on what I was doing. Yes, I was learning something new and had a large staff of people that reported up through me, and that was, certain parts about it were rewarding, but my income kept getting lower and lower, which didn't really make sense to me. And every time there was an acquisition, I didn't have any equity. I mean, small pieces of equity. So it felt like I was getting burnt out, and as I knew I needed to make a change.
So, even making that leap and then fast forward to where you are now, ownership or full commission job, when you think about that, Does the feeling come through across as exciting, terrifying, or somewhere in the middle?
I didn't realize how much of a risk taker I am, but I am. And, it is exciting. There's crazy highs and crazy lows, no question about what I'm doing, but I see what we're building and I get excited. So that's really what keeps me motivated to press on. There's times of just like, oh my goodness, what is going on? How did I get here? Because it's early. We're an emerging business. I wear a lot of hats and it's nonstop. I mean, there's you know there's nowhere to hide. It just comes down to me, the decisions I've made, who I bring onto the team, and how do we operate within within our sphere of business.
So walk us through that a little bit in terms of from onboarding to kind of where you are now, like the things you have to navigate through that in terms of building a team, those type of things. Just walk us through a little bit of the onboarding to where we land today.
So, I mean, the onboarding process, I mean, the way I always see it, when you make a decision and you've decided, all right, this is the direction I'm going, there's a lot of excitement, right? There's a little fear or a lot of fear, but you have the massive aspirations, pretty, big bodacious goals that you're getting after. And, you're like, all right, whatever it takes, I'm going to make it happen. And now now that I'm in it, it's just super interesting because I knew it was coming. It's that, that valley of deception that every entrepreneur is going to go through, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen because, there was that, there's that level of I'm, consciously aware that I have a lot to learn. And then when you hit that wall of, oh my gosh, we're, this looks really like it's going to take a long time to get out of, but you're learning along the way. And now, so it's, you start climbing out of it, and then you get back to, all right, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
So, that's what's been really interesting for a new business owner for sure.
As you worked through that, what would you say like are some of the biggest surprises? Some of those valleys.
Cash flow,
Yeah.
cash flow. Yeah. So, out of the gates, it's okay. You've got a plan. You've got a marketing plan. You're going to spend this, and you have that expectation because every partner that you hire is going to tell you what great looks like, and yes, they may have history of helping other business owners, but every market's a little bit different. Every business is a bit different, and what their reference points may be is a seasoned business that has some type of online profile. Because I'm referencing digital marketing. I think that's where a lot of people spend money these days, and I spent a lot, and now I'm kind of paying the price because I burned up through a lot of cash. Whereas when you track our success in the first year, it's overwhelmingly positive in the networking. Overwhelming, like 80%. And we have and we've done really, really well. And if I would have just preserved cash a little bit more, not to say I wouldn't be spending on those areas, because you do need to, and I do. But I think I over indexed the amount of capital that I would be spending. And, even though you have coaches that tell you, make sure you're tracking your return on ad spend and putting in all these spreadsheets, and it's when you're wearing a lot of hats and you're learning so many new things, it's like, okay, well, I have faith that that's working, because you might see some quick wins, but you might not understand that I spent $5,000 here and I didn't even make my money back.
Yeah, I think I did a podcast last week or so with Michael Glassman out of Denver that runs iPhone, and he made a good comment. He said, a business partner of his told him one time, when you think about business, it's going to be more difficult than you think, and you're going to need more money than you think. To your point, in the very beginning, when you're wearing a ton of hats, you're bouncing around everywhere, tracking those things, and being able to really dial into what you're getting is so important. But at the same time, you can also get distracted.
Yep. 100%. And I think that's really positive advice. That's what I tell a lot of new prospective business owners, is exactly what you just said. It's going to be harder than you think, and you're going to need more money than you think.
So for you, I mean, that might be the answer to this question, right? What is something nobody tells you before becoming an owner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the capital stack that you're working with. We went through a large budget process, in December, January, and it's hard because there's a lot of little numbers to track and implement, and then and measure and manage it, and even though you've got a plan, to stay disciplined, because it's so easy as a business owner to chase multiple rabbits, right? I mean, there's always going to be someone knocking on your door. There's always going to be your phone ringing of people soliciting for your business, and they're all really talented. There's really good salespeople, and they're all believe they can help you. So I don't think they're lying. I don't think they're sneaky. I think they truly believe that they have a solution for you. And, the challenge is if you go out there and just say yes to everyone, you end up just blowing through cash. And I've made some of those mistakes. And now I'm getting a little bit more disciplined on, okay, what's working, what's got the biggest return on that spend and my time, and just focus on that. And then I think the other piece of advice that I would give owners is that, yes, you want to you want to get after it, right? You want to just put a lot of, pressure, but business takes time to develop, and you have to give yourself grace, right? So I think if you give yourself a true run ramp, then you're going to end up seeing that explosion of business over the course of time. And you'll look back and be like, oh, that really wasn't that long. Right. Because everybody wants to, be profitable in the first couple of months and then just not have to look for more capital or funding. Hang on one second, Dave. Can we pause for a second? I just got to call my GM really quick.
Yep.
Hey, I'm in the midst of a podcast, but I pressed pause. All right. I'll call you back in like 20 minutes or so. I can never tell if it's a 911.
There's a part of me that wants to keep that in the podcast to be like, hey, sometimes these things happen.
I mean, it is 96 degrees outside.
Fair enough. So, Carl, I wonder this for people that are looking into getting into business ownership, what would you tell them when they think to themselves, I'm looking for something that's a little more passive?
I mean, I mean, for at least where I sit, I mean, there's been nothing passive about, you know, the amount of work I do for owning a business. I mean, I would say, buy a piece of real estate.
Yeah.
If you want passive income, I know that there is, I know that there's opportunities for this in the future, but to become passive, right? And I think part of, our goal is to build and grow teams, right? So if I can help others grow into this business and develop as leaders, then I have the opportunity to turning this into more of a passive investment. But it's all about duplicating yourself. I mean, how do you replace yourself with, good quality people that, are motivated to help build a business, right? So right now, I mean, I self-funded, so it is completely just bootstrapping, for this business, and, the amount of time, energy, and capital that I've invested into it, it's anything but passive, I'll say.
And so when you think about that, when you think about the marketing, call it a misstep, whatever you want to, however you look at it, how do you mentally push through those things? And then, like you said, get out of those valleys.
Well, it's easy to beat yourself up. It really is, to be like, "Oh, what did I do? This was a bad decision." I think you just gotta keep moving forward, day by day. Like, some of the things that I've done is I've really looked at measuring the return on some of those investments. I've looked at my cost. I've looked at every expense component that is going into my overhead budget and figured out, all right, how do I reduce this? How can I run lean so I can build enough profit that I can invest in some of these areas, as opposed to taking the large capital stack I had and just spraying it out there and hoping it all comes back in. And that was the error I made. I mean, I measured it, with in the first, 3 months, but kept on moving. I think because I was doing so many other things and I wasn't properly measuring it. I was just, you know, feeling like they were working when they weren't. But some of those things that I was doing back then, with a less of a spend are now working. It's because now I've got a good reputation. I've got good reviews. I've got good process. I mean, all the things that you really can't buy. You can't buy it out of the gate. So you kind of have to earn it. And then when you start, because all these things, they do work. I mean, if you get the right partners, I mean, you do have to invest in some of these advertising opportunities to the scale. I mean, there's some owners that do the bare minimum just to stay viable. And but really, what's worked is really just getting out there and talking to people and just networking.
Yeah, you make a really good point there, where there are some things in business, especially home service business, that they can't be bought. Reputation can't be bought. Google reviews can't be bought. And oftentimes those are really what jumpstart business in terms of, especially in your local area, making a name for yourself. I'm going to give you an air quote question here, but describe a typical day for yourself.
Oh, there's no typical day. Every day is different. I mean, today I was at the shop early. I loaded a piece of equipment for an install today. Drove it out to meet the guys, unloaded. Then I went to a network group, which I go to every Thursday. And that's about 2 hours that I do every week. Great event, great people. You learn other people's businesses. And, what we're meeting for is to learn about them, learn about their business. That way we can identify opportunities when we see them for themselves. And we're big on reciprocating lead flow. So those are great meetings. I don't miss them. They're really important. You end up meeting some great people, and it's great to help others as well because it just ends up flowing back to you. So that's what I do on Thursday. I picked up a large check from an install we just did, and then I had lunch with a client, and then then I came back and I'm working on our dispatch board, trying to figure out what next week looks like because it's hot right now. So we're getting
Yeah.
demand calls and we've got installs, booked. I mean, so I talk to my general manager probably 5, 6 times a day, probably even more. So it's nonstop. We should just have walkie talkies at this point, the amount of time we connect in a day. And then I'm, trying to I have an intern doing some marketing. So it's trying to keep her on track. She's my daughter. So I give her a lot of grace, but she's, willing to pitch in and help. And then, talking to clients,
Yeah.
I call back, we've got a call center. So I listen to a lot of those calls. I follow back up just to, if there's something that slipped through the cracks, just communicating. I write a bunch of blogs that my daughter will post on our website. So there's a lot. I mean,
Yeah. It's not typical, but it just is part of the deal,
it,
part of your flow.
yeah, exactly. I mean, part of it's strategy when I talk to my GM about, who do we need? Because I think that's where, we're at that phase where we're probably behind in hiring our next service tech. And right now, the guys we want, they're too busy to go interview for another job.
Yep.
Those are the guys we want. I mean, the ones that are on the sideline, we probably don't want in our business. So we should have made this hire in January. So
Yeah.
it's a lesson.
It's funny you said it. 10 years ago, remember they used to have Nextel phones that were like a part walkie-talkie. That was the way to do it back in the day. So as you look at this, and I know you definitely don't take enough time right now to reflect, but currently, what's the most rewarding part about owning your business?
I would say just being that leader of a team and keeping them motivated. Like, right now, I have a pretty clear vision of what we're building. And, the job the main job I have is to make sure I'm communicating that vision that everyone can buy into. Because the minute they have no purpose to move forward or wake up and get to the job and work in an attic that's 120 degrees, I mean, the minute that stops, they don't see what they're building and they don't feel a part of something, then I've lost it.
Yep. It's interesting you say that. I was a college football coach for 15 years. And one quote that I always tell people is when you think about your team building, you're talking about your technicians, your general manager, those type of things, is people will always follow a leader before they'll follow the vision. So you're right, over communicating those things, but also getting your people in those leadership roles to be doubling down on that vision is really the way to build out the team.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So talk about when you got into this space and maybe it's the HVAC space in general where you sit now. How has it been in terms of customer journey, customer relationship, those type of things?
I mean, the customer journey has been, yeah, I think that's one of the things that has helped me with my networking is I've turned it into rather than work, I've turned it into fun, right? So a lot of my lead flow comes from the golf course. I'm in like a Saturday group with about 24 different guys. So I play with, different people every Saturday. If time allows, like the winter a little bit more. And right now, no. But there was a Friday group I play golf with. It's a completely different group. There was a sim league I played at nighttime. I love golf. If haven't figured.
That if you want to know a lot about somebody as a person or a business person, play golf with them. Did you
Yeah,
get a 4 or a 5? I got a 4. I can't trust them.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so it's really interesting. I love that comment because you get to know people, and I think about that too. If I'm playing on a team with someone, they're like, "You got a par, right?" No, I got a bogey. And like, and I got a bogey. You put down a bogey, right? So I am very honest, right?
Yeah, rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, those things. I play like pickleball on Tuesday. I go to Bible study on Wednesday. I mean, every one of those events are very intentional, and I'm not doing it to sell anybody anything. So there's never any selling, but it's inevitable. It always comes up. And then, the goal is really to be that trusted friend that will help them when their AC goes out, right? They know that we're on top of it.
To your point, everything about business is about relationship. So if, things that you're doing now, down the road, you'll be top of mind when their AC goes out. Like, again, when it gets hot today and they're thinking of from that pickleball court, they're like, "My AC went out. Hey, Carl, let me call Carl." And I think that there's a lot to be said about that. I know that, a long time ago, a lot of business was done on the golf course, and a lot of relationships are made on the golf course. So I think that's cool. I think that's an interesting pivot in your brain to say, "Hey, this doesn't have to be, uh, salesy all the time. I just need to go make relationship." Because again, sales is just high level conversation, and so that's really cool.
Yeah. So and I try to teach that too to my guys. It's because we've got the right incentives for guys to be rewarded when they're bringing on new customers because they're the trusted resource. And I mean, the way I spin it to them is it's really not hard. Just make friends. People
Correct.
do business with people they like and
Yep, and you're providing a service. It's not a oftentimes it's not a want, it's a need, and so we need to do right by the customer. We need to provide great service, and so, yeah, you're thinking about it the right way. So, you mentioned that you probably should have hired somebody earlier in your team. I think about this in the terms of you. Do you think it will be difficult for you to realize these are some things I need to stop doing everything myself and do a little bit more delegation?
yeah, I mean, so regarding the hiring, I have about 4 weeks ago I hired a recruiter to try to find me talent because we're behind the eight ball now. Now I need someone that's going to hit the phones and do it for them. I mean, yes, like even hiring my daughter as an intern this summer. She's taking a lot of the admin stuff that I was doing, and it's freed up hours of my time. And where my time is best spent, and that's meeting new people, connecting, following up on leads. And, eventually all of those things that I'm doing are putting focus on now. The goal is to move that off my plate as well. And, the biggest reason I'm looking to hire someone is my GM's super talented, good guy. I mean, just knows this trade. He's been in it for 27 years. I lean on him a lot, and he's in the field almost 100% of the time. And
Was he your if you don't mind me asking, was he your first hire?
no, he was my second. And the first GM I hired, and I tell this to all new, prospective owners, I was rushing. So I hired, I think I only had like 3 resumes, and I hired one of them. And there really wasn't, because I was hiring between Thanksgiving and Christmas, not a lot of people looking. And I hired a con man.
Okay.
It was, yeah. I mean, he was not who he said he was. I ignored like 3 or 4 red flags because I was looking to open, because I'd already written a check. I was excited to get started. And he was in my office. Maybe we worked 3 days together. And then I was, it was very clear. And there was one thing that was finally like, all right, I just got to do it now. So, I mean, I let him go after 5 days.
Yeah.
And it was a great decision. And I had to pause, go back to the drawing board. And then I met the general manager who I have today, and we get along great. And, he's super talented. He's, he's a good match. And, and now he's part owner of the company as well.
While I don't recommend anyone hire a con man, I think that from my conversation on this podcast, there's only a few people that have hired their current general manager first. Now, I do have a whole group of people that have said, like, that first person was still great for us at that time, but as we started to realize and learn about the business, we realized what we needed a little bit differently. And so it's almost like that first one is always like a foul tip. But that's very interesting. So if you were,
And maybe con man was a bit harsh, but I mean,
I mean, I like it. I like it. So now when you look at something, if you were you're on the golf course and someone's thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about buying a business for myself. What advice would you give them?
actually, I have played golf with some people that have said that very thing to me. And I had said, well, come by my shop. I'll kind of tell you through, walk you through the process. But I would say for them, what I've been telling them is, I said, it's all about finding the right people. I said, if you get the right people and you implement process, then you're already ahead of the game. So if you're, for me at least, I mean, I'm very much in the business. So if you're just an investor of the business and you're kind of absentee, I think it's for me, I think it's going to be a bit harder unless you truly have that bond and that trust. Otherwise, they're going to feel micromanaged. I mean, the one thing that, I show my guys is that I roll up my sleeves when they need it. I'm in the field, I'm picking up trash, I'm in an attic with them. We had a job that was going late, and my GM he was getting on an airplane the next day, and he was upset because one of the guys had I think they were late, or the job got delayed, and he's like, we can't leave it like this. We're here till 10 o'clock at night tonight, and it was like 3 in the afternoon. I was like, well, let's go. What do you need me to do? I went in the attic. I mean, it was a duct, there was like some duct work. So it was just things that was well within my capabilities of doing. We followed the process, and I was there for 3 hours, and or maybe I was there for 4 hours, and we probably saved them 3. Because we was all hands on deck, and we were out there, and I think we got there around 8 o'clock. But I mean, just to show them that, hey, whatever it takes. I mean, I'm here with you guys. So this is not a bark orders and go back to my laptop.
Yeah. Do you think in business ownership, do you think there's some essential traits that somebody has to have? You mentioned obviously like talent acquisition, those type of things, but I didn't know if there was something you're like, these are some essential things that business owners should have to have.
I mean, I would say, you've got to be as level-headed as possible. I mean, there's going to be days where you're going to be stressed, and if you can stay calm like this throughout the whole, because I mean, I that day that I just described, I mean, there was a lot of emotion in that, in that attic space when I first got there. It was people were upset, and there was a chance that you know that someone was going to walk off the job and just say, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. So just to be that calm voice and to be like, okay, let's park the issue for now. Let's focus on what do we need to do to get this done so we can all get home in a decent hour. And everyone took a deep breath. And I mean, we were laughing, 2 hours later all together in a hot attic. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I think
just being that, showing that leadership to be calm, because there's gonna be moments where, there's not enough money in the bank. Someone made an error, and you've got to call it, have a difficult conversation with a client. You've got to have that really good conflict resolution. I mean, those are skills that I think are key. But just being super calm and just, of course, but yet having that sense of urgency to make sure things don't fester. Like if you ignore something long enough, it's going to bite you.
yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I think that there's a lot to be said for the way that you're building out your team and those type of things, and having that level set is probably the one of the most difficult things there is.
Yeah.
So, for you, biggest misconception about business ownership?
I mean, for me, it was, time freedom. Yeah, if you make your own, make your own hours, and I could be flexible. Like if I need to take a day off, I could take it as long as I'm communicating with my team and make sure that they've got everything they need. I can be flexible, but I don't take a lot of vacation at the moment. And it's also, we're in that build mode, so it's how do you stretch a dollar, because I'm probably the least paid guy on the payroll right now, but we're building. I know, so I think I had expected to be paying myself more at this moment, but the way I'm now looking at it is I'd rather take the sacrifice right now and invest in the business and just delay that gratification for as long as I can, as possible.
That's a really good point, and I think that I'm sure there's a shift in the perspective as you see the business, as you feel things growing, you feel that swell. So for you, like, what's next for you? I know that this is starting early. It's another, like you said, another technician. Do you see yourself in the next couple of years maybe growing territory? What do you see for you?
Yeah, so definitely getting another technician, having someone that can have their own van, get out there and diagnose. And we've been talking about adding an install crew. So there's been some contract labor that we've been using, and they're working out pretty well for us. So we've been going through the vetting process, and we're potentially bringing them on board for our team full time. So there's that. And then I'm also looking at some small acquisitions to buy market share and really to buy talent. So that's who I think I need. And, it's not about their book. It's really about, all right, if, if they, if they've got a good reputation, they've got the value systems that we already have. So if there's a lot of similarities. If I can find a company like that, then, I'd love to invest in growing that way.
Yeah, that's a different perspective, but I think that when you think about finding a way to buy market share or at least get into market share with that regard, I think there's a different path, right, to do everything. There's a different way you talked about marketing. There's a different way to get market share, et cetera. So it's really cool. So if somebody was literally on the doorstep and they're like, "Yep, I think that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to buy business," but they have a little bit of pause. Is there some piece of advice that you would give them? They're right on the doorstep. They've been through a process like you have. Now they're just, I need to understand to get to over the finish line.
Well, for me, I mean, I'm a faith-based man, so I mean, I lean on, I lean on the Lord Jesus Christ to, for every decision. So I pray. on that. And if they're a spiritual person, I would recommend highly to really self-reflect and listen to really what your intuition, and in my case, what God's telling you. So they're big decisions. And I would never push someone to make a decision in any way. I think if you've done enough due diligence on what it is that you're buying, what the process might look like, what are the expectations for you to properly run, who do you need. If you've gone through that entire process and you've figured out, okay, what's a realistic goal in the first year, and how am I going to be able to make it happen where you don't give up? Because I do believe, no matter who you are, if you made that decision, you've got no safety net, you burn the boats, you are taking the island, just keep moving and you'll get there. It might not be at your, you know, at your, at the timeline that you've created, but eventually you'll get there, because what happens is every time you misstep, you learn and you don't make that mistake again. Like, I ran out of money, got funding. And now
Yep.
we're starting to, become more profitable, paying down some of that debt. And then now where are we going to invest that new cap? And how do you sustain it? Right. So it's just about continuing to move forward, and you're going to run into hurdles. It seems like every day you'll run into something that pops up. And if you can just stay the course, not give up, then you'll be successful.
How important do you think it is to be honest with yourself with a self evaluation of what you're ready to do versus like where you have to hire, right? You have to be honest with yourself, like, oh, I can do that. I can do this. But if you're before you own a business, it's important to be real honest with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think knowing where your skill set is, and then, I think every business needs that entrepreneurial visionary of, where you're going. You need certainly the talent or that skilled artist that can take you, and you can sell. And then you need someone to manage the business, right? So those are three key hats. And yes, you can wear more than one, but for the most part, every business needs that right now. So, the way I'm looking at, our team is, we've got, me as the more of the visionary, and, I'm very good at, connecting with people and selling, but managing, yeah, I'm pretty good. But I know there's some gaps there. And
Right.
then, my GM, who is just an absolute craftsman.
The integrator.
Yeah. Yeah. And right now we're very honest with each other. I'm like, we're not using you to your capacity. We're using your skilled labor, but that's just going to not allow us to scale. That's basically just going to burn you out. And then you're going to end up saying, why am I doing this? So,
And that also comes back to those transparent, real conversations within the businesses.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so we are having those, conversations with one another as a team of, okay, here's here's the gap. This is what we need to address. And it's hard because, the phone rings, there's, we're very reactive, and those conversations are very proactive about what we need. And now it's like, okay, all right, we need to pause to get this shored up. So, I mean, we meet every week, and, it's some of these things, they're still on the board of must do's and they're not done yet. So now it's all right, well, we got to try something else. That doesn't work. Try something else.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So I like to ask the three and out group of questions at the very end. They're more about you. So, favorite way to unwind when you do?
Golf.
100% golf.
Just golf. Yep.
That. Love that. One business tool you can't live without.
Business tool. I mean, my cell phone.
Fair. Hardest part of ownership in one word.
People.
Most rewarding part in one word.
It's also people.
And then finally, energy drink or coffee.
Well, I drink 2 cups of coffee a day, and my son just started working with Celsius. So now I've got a fridge full of them. So that's like a midday pick me up. And I never really liked energy drinks, but that one's pretty good.
I like that. I like that. Awesome, Carl. Well, if you're listening and thinking about business ownership, understand it takes work, growth, and commitment, but the upside is real. To our listeners, thanks for joining the Franchise Frontier podcast. Playbook is out there. The question is, are you willing to run it? Subscribe and look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Carl, appreciate your time and sharing your journey.